Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Police making headway in Sunday's beryllium armored truck robbery investigations. Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce calls for update on Enhanced Security Measures Act. And later in sports, Leon Edwards retains UFC title. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. As investigations into yesterday's multi-million-dollar heist in Portmore, St. Catherine intensify, the police say they are getting closer to nabbing those responsible. The cops say they now know the identities of the persons involved in the robbery. Kimon Witter has the details.
The Jamaica Constabulary Force says several operations are ongoing to find the criminals behind the brazen afternoon robbery in Portmore, St. Catherine on Sunday. Videos circulating on social media showed that security guards from Beryllium came under heavy gunfire from armed robbers as they were approaching the Scotiabank automated banking machine in Brayton Parkway. 5 people were wounded, including 4 security guards and a licensed firearm holder. 3 guards were shot, but their injuries are not life-threatening. Head of the JCF's Corporate Communications Unit, Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, says the men in the attack have been identified.
They now have an idea as to who they are looking for and who are the perpetrators behind the attack.
All right, and in terms of the vehicles that were found, we have confirmed that they were in fact used in the robbery?
Yes, they confirmed that those were the vehicles that were involved, and they have tracked down, the owners, etc. So they are doing some work around that. It forms a very critical part of the investigation. So the vehicles remain in police custody as they do the necessary work around them.
The vehicles being referred to were found in Lake Spence, St. Catherine. In the meantime, SSP Lindsay says with the amount of cash the robbers made off with yesterday, there could be serious consequences for residents as well as the robbers themselves.
It's not unusual for us to now have to see infighting among criminal groups for the spoils, and it's not unusual for them to direct this fund into getting additional guns and ammunition to strengthen their criminal network. So it's usually the citizens that suffer in these instances, and that is why we'd love for them to assist in any way they can to get these persons apprehended. But from the policing side, the commanding officer is very satisfied with where they are so far.
The attackers reportedly stole $23.2 million. 94 9mm spent shells and 76 spent casings from rifles were found at the scene. Kimon Witter reporting for TVG News.
In the meantime, Jamaicans are being urged to brace for disruptions at automated teller machines in some locations across the island today, stemming from Sunday's robbery. The National Commercial Bank, NCB, issued a statement saying customers may experience delays accessing the ABM services, Dropbox deposits, and cash pickup services. NCB has advised customers to instead use its mobile app and online services to conduct transactions. Meanwhile, Scotiabank of Jamaica is advising the public that its Portmore branch will remain closed today. However, the bank says other locations are open for business. The government needs to find other measures to deal with crime. That's a call from the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce. It comes following the recent declaration of another state of emergency in the Western Parish by Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Sandra Williams reports.
The business community in Montego Bay says its finances are now being severely impacted by the repeated use of the states of emergency SOEs. Prime Minister Andrew Holness on Tuesday announced the new measure, which is slated to run for 14 days. But the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce and Industry seems to be growing tired of the repeated use of the measure. Chamber President Omar Havens believes targeted operations are needed.
For example, persons who left school in grade 3 or grade 6, they have gone to universities and colleges. They are not stupid. Why would I wait in a long line of traffic to be taken out and be locked up? The criminals will not go through those lines. So is it productive to have those long lines and then prevent the tourists from going to the hotel, prevent sick people from going to the hospital? What we're asking is for the powers that be to rethink the strategies.
He, however, hastened to say that the chamber is not against the measure. In the meantime, Mr. Havens is calling for an update from the government on the Enhanced Security Measures Act ESMA.
It was in its own speech a year ago. It has been mentioned that it should be tabled in Parliament, but we have not heard much more about it since last year. We are therefore asking, what happened to this act? This act will allow law enforcement to do their work, but at the same time, don't create that fear that SOE creates.
As for resources,
the police are calling for more resources in St. James to assist our capable Senior Superintendent of Police, Vernon Ellis, and his team to fight this monster. When we compare where we were last year with where we are today, murder is down, but we're still too high. One murder is one too many. And having 4 murders in one day is a serious concern to the business community.
According to the JCF's crime statistics, 36 people have been murdered in St. James up to March 11. That's 15 less than the 51 in the corresponding period last year. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
The Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, is calling on countries within the region and Latin America to lower inflation and reduce the public debt burden for this calendar year. It comes as inflation across the globe continues to rise, with governments raising interest rates in a bid to get inflation under control. However, the IDB has listed a number of recommendations, which it says, if implemented, could bring back inflation within the target range by 2024. In the short term, it has called for policies which will reduce the impact on the most vulnerable, including implementing targeted subsidies. In the medium and long term, the IDB says policies that stimulate investment in physical and digital infrastructure should be targeted. It also called for a detailed look at how the labor markets function by only giving incentives for productivity. This, the IDB notes, will contribute to a return to healthy growth levels. The IDB has also recommended fiscal policy plans to increase the efficiency of expenditure tax collection and improve fiscal institutions and adequately manage debt. And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us, much more stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. A St. Mary family is searching for answers after the breadwinner disappeared without a trace. Karen Simpson has that story.
Loretta Campbell, wife of Alexander Campbell of Boscobel View, St. Mary, says she has not slept since Thursday as calls to her husband's phone have been going unanswered. She recalls that he was in good spirits when he left home sometime before midday.
I was inside lying down, not feeling well, and him come inside and said he got a rose. And I'm going to wait and come back. My daughter gone to school and when was going, so I decided to call his phone to find out if he could pick her up when she come down from Portmore to bring her over for me. And the phone just go straight to voicemail.
Mrs. Campbell said after tracking the truck, it was found abandoned in Clarendon.
And I don't know what could have transpired for them to do what they did. I don't know if he's alive or he's dead. I would like to get some answer. Anyone out there who could assist with helping us to find him or to get some closure.
Anyone with information that can assist with the whereabouts of Alexander Campbell can contact his wife Loretta Campbell at 876-282-2365 or the St. Mary Police at 876-410-1194. Carrie Simpson for TVJ News.
The Savannah Lamar Public General Hospital in Westmoreland now has an energy-efficient boiler system. This was commissioned into service by Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton recently. The National Health Fund, in collaboration with the Ministry of Health, funded the project. The system was installed at a cost of $29 million.
If it were absent or if it malfunctions, it can threaten the entire operation of the hospital. Meaning the hospital can shut down, totally shut down. There'll be no food to eat. You have no linen to put on the beds. You have no sterilization, so the equipment is suspect, which can lead to infection prevention and control issues. People can die if you don't have a boiler that supports the operations of the hospital, both in the administrative element as well as in the specialist service element.
The older system, which has been in use for over 30 years, will now serve as a substitute. Dr. Tufton says the upgrading of health facilities is critical in preventing medical errors.
That we will neglect healthcare infrastructure at our own peril. And when we do that and the consequences blow back at us, we mustn't seek to cast blame without looking at ourselves sometimes as to where we have gone wrong as a society in ensuring that the process works in a sustainable way. Because part of the challenge that we face now is that we have not approached our hospital infrastructure over time in a sustainable way. And we're feeling the effects of it now.
And it's time for the Business Minute.
Delivery application and service provider Hugo App is closing its Jamaica operations. The El Salvador-based company shared their decision via a memo to partners dated March 17. Hugo App says the decision comes after strategic planning, which took place after the company was acquired by Germany-based Delivery Hero. Upon entry into the local market in early 2021, Hugo was set to provide about 300 jobs in the quick service delivery market, which saw a boom locally due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Based on the memo, Hugo is to end the commission agreement it has with the local partners on April 30 at 10 p.m. The delivery market across the world has seen a slowdown since the easing of COVID-19 restrictions. It is not clear whether other Hugo operations across the region will be affected. Further afield, Switzerland's biggest bank, UBS, has agreed to buy its ailing rival Credit Suisse in an emergency rescue deal aimed at stemming financial market panic unleashed by the failure of two American banks earlier this month. It said the rescue would secure financial stability and protect the Swiss economy. Credit Suisse last year recorded its worst loss since the global financial crisis, but confidence collapsed last week after it acknowledged material weakness in its bookkeeping. Shares in the 167-year-old bank fell 25% over the week. Money poured from investment funds it manages, and at one point, account holders were withdrawing deposits of more than $10 billion per day. The Financial Times reported an emergency loan from the Swiss National Bank failed to stop the bleeding. The emergency takeover was agreed to after days of frantic negotiations involving financial regulators in Switzerland, the United States, and the United Kingdom. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
St. Lucia's Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre has promised that his administration will continue implementing measures to ensure the country's stability and security. He was speaking a day after the government introduced the Suppression of Escalated Crime Police Powers Bill in the lower house of Parliament in response to a spike in deadly gun violence in the southern town of Vieux Fort. The bill aims to provide the Royal St. Lucia Police Force with expanded powers to respond to areas where crime has escalated. On the international scene, for the first time in history, a former president of the United States may be indicted for a crime. A grand jury investigation into crimes alleged to have been committed by Donald Trump is set to end. The former president is bracing for possible arrest while law enforcement at every level prepare for protests that could likely follow. Mr. Trump is being investigated for his role in an alleged hush money scheme involving payments made in 2016 by his then attorney Michael Cohen to adult film actress Stormy Daniels. The former president's legal team has been anticipating that an indictment was pending and has been preparing behind the scenes for the next steps. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Harriet Simpson.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, Jordan Fort will have your midday sports report.